So I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I enjoyed your performance a lot in It's a Wonderful Life in Chicago, so I'm super excited to have you on.
Thanks so much.
Of course, and so to begin, can you just introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are, who haven't heard of you yet?
My name is Brandon Dahlquist, and I am a professional actor living in Chicago, Illinois.
That's awesome. And so before we jump into It's a Wonderful Life, I want to talk a little bit about your p career as a actor. And so, what made you want to pursue acting full time?
Um, well, that's a great question. I think what made me want to pursue acting full time was realizing that I had made it through a couple of years of auditioning as a young person in Chicago, and I still I still had the love for what I was doing. I I had had some small amounts of success in booking some productions around Chicago and a couple of commercials. And I thought, okay, well, some of my pals aren't doing as well as I think I am, and I might as well just keep doing this. And then I got signed with an agent, and they believed in me, and that's kind of what made me want to do it full time. And as you do things full time in this career, you have to pick up some other side jobs at sometimes. And so I've always been acting, and just it's a question of how much other stuff I have to do in on top of the acting.
Yeah, for
But
sure. That's a great journey. And so, when you were younger, when did you quote unquote get bit by the theater bug, and what made you want to do acting and start acting?
well, I grew up in northern Minnesota, and a lot of my pals played hockey, and so I also skated and played hockey. And then I didn't make a hockey team. I think it was my seventh grade Bantam B hockey team, and all my buddies did. And so I was really bummed out. I didn't have anything else to do, and so I joined a I joined the choir. I sang in the choir, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And I met some other great friends. And then I auditioned for the musical. We did Camelot that year, and I ended up being in the musical Camelot. I thought, hey, this is kind of fun. And that's, I think, probably where I got bitten by the bug. And I guess the bug for me was always community. I always wanted to be around other people that were excited about what I was excited about. And I found that community with the theater. And I guess I stayed bit.
Yeah, for sure. And so this is your ninth season with It's a Wonderful Life. And so, what is the rehearsal process for a show like this? Because it's not a classic theater show with staging and blocking. So, what is the rehearsal process for this type of radio drama?
Well, with the radio drama, we're fortunate that we get to hold our scripts in our hands, so we can always reference what's on the page and what we're supposed to be doing. And the other blessing of this group is that I know I've worked with my colleagues in It's a Wonderful Life now for myself 9 years, and some of my friends in the production have worked even longer. Like Michael Mahler, our musical director, has been there for 15 years. His wife Dara has been there for 11. My buddy Ian Paul Custer's been there for 11 as well, or 12. So yeah, it's a real it's a treat to get to work with people you know and who know your shorthand, and so you can kind of develop a communication system or a language while you're on stage that you can figure out where you need to be. But in specifically to answer your question about rehearsal, because we're an equity affiliated production, the Union Actors Equity, we are given a rehearsal period, and sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's more abbreviated, depending on if we have new people to add to the production, if there's a lot of new material. So this year we had 1 week of rehearsal where we were able to reconnect at the theater space and welcome a couple of new. Justin Banks is a new actor to our company, and he plays young Harry. He's doing a terrific job, and so it was getting him up to speed with how fast the production moves, how you keep the ball in the air, and we just remind ourselves of where we go to stand, and because so many of us have worked together and we're professionals, we have kind of a shorthand. Um, the rehearsals can feel very abbreviated. We can kind of get what we need to get done in the time we have. A lot of us have families, and so that time away. it's important to use it wisely. So I think we have a very abbreviated but focused rehearsal period.
Yeah, for sure. And so, this is, as I've mentioned, this is your ninth season. And so, what was the audition process like for this type of show?
For my first season, can I
Yeah.
tell you about that? I was working in San Francisco at American Conservatory Theater
Nice.
where my wife was getting her graduate degree, and I got an email from my agent saying, "Hey, the American Blues wants to audition you for George Bailey," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And my buddy had pl Zach Kenny, who's not with the production anymore, had played the part bef for 2 years before I did, and he sent me a text. He's like, "Hey, you're gonna get this email. Let me know if you need any help on auditioning. I kind of know what they like to see, and these are some things you want to try to hit in your audition." And so I had the script. My wife taped me in our on her phone in the rehearsal hall in San Francisco, and I sent off the speech where he tells Mr. Potter what's up. He says, you can say what you want to about my dad, but you can't talk about his character, that whole bit.
Yeah.
And then the scene where he he's praying, at the end of the play where he says, I want to live again. I want to live
Yeah.
again. I don't care what happens to me. And so I did those two tapes. I sent them off, and like immediately I got an email back from Wendy Whiteside, our director and the artistic director, saying, "These are great. Here's 5 things to think about, 5 notes. Do it again." So I did it again. I sent it off. And then that night I got another email from her saying, "Okay, one more thing. Do this," and then send it back. And the next day I did, and I got the offer. It was very quick.
Yeah.
And I was very excited about it. And it was an offer to like do the show. I did. That was 2016 was my first season, and it went great. And then I didn't come back the next year. I had another job down in Florida, and I went to do that job. And then she asked me to come back the next year, and I didn't have to audition. So I figured that was a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great journey. And so, with It's a Wonderful Life being fully like an emotional journey for your character, how do you juggle going on this journey as George each night?
Yeah, it's funny because when you're an actor, um, your body doesn't know that the drama and the trauma that you're putting yourself through, the emotional ups and downs, your body doesn't know that that's fake. Your body is just kind of going along with it. So yeah, there's lots of things that I have to try to prepare to do. I try to leave the stuff I've been dealing with during the day outside the theater. When I walk in the theater, I try to just be a blank slate. I try to use what is helpful for me that day. Like if I've had a tough day with my kids, I might try to keep a kernel of that inside for when I have to yell at my imaginary family on stage. If I've had a great day, I try to keep a little kernel of that so I have something to really, really launch my excited state when I get to live again. So it's tricky because you want to be able to use some things from your day, but you also want to be able to compartmentalize and just do the work. And I think what's nice about this piece is that we've done it enough times now that I kind of know what those uh, parameters are for myself. And I think the most important thing I do to get in a good state is to just be loose physically. I warm my voice up. We all sing together as a group, and we just try to come together collectively to say, all right, we're going to tell this story today. Are we all good? We all check in with each other. And I think it's using what's helpful and leaving what is not helpful.
Yeah, for sure, that's amazing. And so, with this being a radio drama, is there any scene that you look forward to performing each night, or one that you get nervous to perform each night, per se?
Mm. Yeah, there is. I mean, I look forward to so many parts, and actually, the one that I look forward to, the one of my favorite like spots that I can always drop back into to who George is when his friend Violet Bick comes to. She's about to move. It's in the second act, and he gives her money. He's like, "What are you gonna do? You're gonna hawk your furs in that hat? You're gonna walk to New York? They charge for meals and rent up there too. It's a loan, right? That's my business, a building and loan. Besides, you'll get a job." And that for me is one of those like small moments where I always look forward to feeling what that feels like from my scene partner Dara Cameron, who does such a beautiful job. And that moment is always a special moment for me. And the one that I always kind of get a little bit nervous about is when I get the phone call after. after the run on the bank and everybody comes and I give away all my honeymoon money, the $2,000, I give it away. And then they say, hey, you got one more phone call. And I said, oh, could you get my wife on the phone? She's probably over at her mother's. And then I have to receive the information about, hey, we got a house, 320 Sycamore. Whose house is that? That whole bit. It's just a simple technical bit of hearing a phone call while you're on stage and getting the timing of like, how would a phone call sound? Am I losing the audience? Are they still interested? Is this going to get a chuckle or is this going to fall flat? And that's one of those moments where I'm not nervous about it, but it's always a little bit of a technical play, like what's gonna land tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And it's crazy because each audience is different, and so it definitely makes it more challenging.
100%.
And so, along with being a performer on stage, you've performed in a handful of screen performances, including A League of Their Own, Dark Matter, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and a lot more. And so, how do these experiences on screen help you become the performer you are today?
Well, that's a great question. The differences between, performing on stage and performing for, a television or the film camera are very different, just in the size with which you use your instrument. Um, but also the nuggets and the kernels of what is important about being an actor are the same. You want to say what you mean and mean what you say. You want to have the stakes in place. And specifically with It's a Wonderful Life, it's helpful because we are treating these microphones kind of like a camera because they are providing intimacy and proximity in the same way that a television, a film camera provides that close up and you don't have to do any extra work. So it is helpful to calibrate the performance to think about it's big for the theater, but it's also focused and specific into the microphone in the same way that you'd be focused and specific when you're on camera. And as far as like being on set when you're doing some of these shows, like, um, you know, I've been around some pretty fancy people and had some pretty fancy people like tell me what to do on film sets, and it's at first, yeah, it's a little intimidating. Amy Poehler's telling me
Yeah.
that's not funny. Tighten that up. I'm like, okay. But also like it's also really cool because you're in that room and you belong in that room. And so you use that moment to grow and and in that way you become or I've become uh you know a little tested, a little ready for anything. And I think that flexibility and that kind of openness is really important when you're performing in a live show, live radio show, because you have to take what's happening. And I think that's a skill set that you learn, you have to practice. It takes reps, but it's been really helpful, and I'm very thankful for all of the on-camera opportunities I've had too.
Yeah, for sure, that's great. And so, along with performing in Chicago, you've also performed in multiple theaters around the U.S., including Circle and Square, ACT, Gerthy, Milwaukee, Respiratory. And so, how have these experiences around the States helped you improve your craft as an actor?
Yeah, it's great. I love as I've gotten older, I think I love the most about doing a stage performance is the interaction and the feeling you get from an audience, and you feel if your story's landing or if you're communicating or what's right, what's wrong. And the opportunity to do that in different markets has been really good for me because you can get comfortable in a place. And I've been in Chicago for many, many years. And I've had the opportunity to live in New York, live in San Francisco, live in Minneapolis, and like have some ability to be in different markets and feel what's in the water up there or over there. And that's just really cool for me. It gives you different perspective about where you are in the world, where other people are. Um, it it for the actor, I think it really can keep your creativity and your imagination going because you don't just get used to what you're used to. Um, but yeah, no, I've benefited from, when I got to work at the Guthrie, I got to
Yeah.
perform in front of many of my colleagues from high school and college, and my family got to see me. And the Guthrie Theater was one of the first places I ever saw theater as a high school, or like we were in middle school. We went to take a field trip there, and I was blown away by like, oh my God, a theater where grown-ups are going to work. This is what they do. And that for me was a really cool moment to get to work there.
And I mean, the Guthrie is like also such a well-known and well-respected theater in the theater community, and so that's just like awesome to get to just work there.
Yeah, it was. It was a moment for me of like, oh man, this is if you would have told, me when I was 15 watching a production of A Midsummer Night Dream down there with my high school classmates that I'd be working there someday, I'd be like, nah.
Yeah,
So it was really cool. It only took, 20 years,
yeah,
but but it was worth it,
yeah, for sure. And so, speaking of your 15-year-old self, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
That's a great question. I would say you know, it's so hard to do, but to lean into that awkward and lean into that uncomfortable thing that makes you excited. Like for me, I loved music. I loved, my buddies and I were in a Monty Python sketch group. We made, short films on our, video cameras, and we were just all anything that we could kind of geek out about. We loved Star Trek. We were like trying to do our we made a bridge and tried to, do Next Generation. Like it was so cheesy, but we loved it. And to really lean into that and ignore the noise from other people like saying, "Yeah, that's stupid," or "That's not going to work," or "Why don't you do this?" Because, what was it? I think for an artist, what's important, or a creative person, what's important is to like have healthy respect for what you want to do and to not care too much about, what other people are saying because, that it's for you and it's helpful and it can make you a better person if you have access to your creativity and what makes you really excited. So I would say to my 15-year-old self, don't worry that you didn't make the hockey team. You're hanging out with new people. Yeah, you're a little geek, you're not you don't have it all figured out yet, but you're onto it. And just trust the people you're hanging out with. If you're creating cool stuff, just, trust that. That's what
Yeah,
I'd say to
that's
my
great. And
15-year-old self.
that mindset's also like really great as an actor. So, uh, and so this next question kind of ties into the last one, but what advice would you give to younger performers who want to pursue acting professionally?
Yeah, I'd say I'd say that know how hard it is. Know that there's a lot of people that also want to pursue it. One thing that I didn't really grasp when I was younger was that it didn't matter how hard I worked at it, or if I studied, if I did all the things that I thought, oh, I'm going to study this and I'm going to ace this test, and then I got the job, and then I get because it's a little bit more intangible. It didn't matter if I got all the right answers. Somebody else got all the right answers, and they, had an intangible quality that just made them this much, more right for the part. And that's something I had a hard time learning and I think a lot of actors have a hard time with that. And so I would say that like to younger performers, like just know that it's not, it's not you, it's them.
Yeah.
But it is about, they want to see what makes us as individuals and artists interesting and what makes us tick. And to try to conform into what we think they want to see is ultimately not very helpful. And so it is that would be my big piece of advice would be to like just know that, just keep going. It is another friend of mine called it a war of attrition. So you have to kind of wait it out a little bit. But I would say that having an understanding of those things going into it is really important. And then also lean on your people. Create with your people that you are with. Some of the most successful actors I know have begun with theater companies that they started with, either with their friends from college or that they found when they were working with a company, or if you're working with a filmmaker that you really like their style or their writing, uh, you stay with those people, and that rising tide of that community will lift everybody. Martin Scorsese works with Robert De Niro like almost exclusively, and Leo DiCaprio. Like, there's a reason that filmmakers will work with some same actors. That's why theater companies used to have repertory companies. when you create and you show that you're dependable and excited about what you're doing, that attracts other dependable, excited, you know, quality folks to work with, and that all raises. At least that's what I like to think. And
Yeah,
so I would give those pieces of advice. That was a long answer.
that's
Sorry,
excellent.
Timothy.
Yeah, that's some great advice, and that actually wraps up the interview today. So I'd like to thank you for
Oh,
joining me here.
great. Well, hey, I hope I hit all the points for you.
Yeah, of course.